right, my name's Dualta. I've been running the Recruiter Startup podcast for, I don't know, a number of years. I've had some of these great guests on over the years, and we're going to bring the show live to you tonight. So thank you all very much for coming. So, first guest up, the man himself, Alex Elliott. All right, Alex, give everybody just a bit of a rundown on your elevator pitch. Who are you?
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Elliott. So I co-founded a company in 2006 called Liquid, and we scaled that over 10 years to about 130 heads, 11 million NFI, 4 million EBIT. Exited that via a recruitment PE-backed recruitment group in 2016, and ever since then I've been investing and advising within the recruitment and RecTech space.
All right, and why I want to bring him on here is not just because he's been successful in the past, but Alex is everywhere and he has eyes on the recruitment side from an advisory perspective, but also on the supplier side as well. So he sees who's growing, who's not. And today I want to be able to delve into more of those things.
Sounds good.
Okay, second guest up. Could you come to the stage, please? Rich Evans couldn't make it, hey? What happened?
I know.
We got a substitute though, right?
I know, a shite substitute, but I'll do my best to fill his boots, aye.
Give us a rundown on your background, Chris.
Used to run Peace Recruitment from 2009, took it to 25 staff, 10 million turnover, three and a bit million net fee income, did a management buyout last year for just under 4 million. Still own a small share in it, and I'm now coaching.
Brilliant. What does coaching mean?
Listening, which I'm fucking terrible at, and hopefully passing on some knowledge, but I just love helping people and I love business, but I work with other either B2B marketing companies or recruitment companies to try and help them potentially either grow a business that they love, that can create the lifestyle that they want, or potentially exit. But I just want to impart knowledge and support these guys and at the timescales and the way they want. But I'd like to think I probably try to do it in a very uncoachy way. It's not just about open questions and nodding at the right time. Sometimes it's a inappropriate analogy or a story about telling you how you did it before. So yeah, I'm just trying to help, but I'm still finding my feet in that regard. I've only been doing it for a year, but I'm loving it so far.
When did you have your event?
It was September 2024.
Okay, so the market crashed. People aren't buying recruitment firms. How'd you do it?
I basically twisted the arm of my management team into buying it off me at the right price. Now, it's been something that I'd targeted to do it by age 45. I did it on the 31st of July officially, and I turned 45 on the 5th of September. But I'd been training and developing my leadership team with the likes of Jamie Burrows' help and trying to get layers of management into the organisation on the understanding they knew I was going to be passing over the reins eventually. And the way it's structured, it's a free shot for them because of the cash flow that was in the business and the systems that were set up and the processes. And so it's the whole business is structured, and the buyout was structured in a way that everybody's risk was covered.
And Alex, what's your portfolio look like in your split between recruitment companies and RecTech?
Yeah, heavily focused on or heavily geared towards RecTech. So I've currently got, I think, 7 investments within RecTech. I've invested in a couple of recruitment companies, one of which is here today, is the guys at Link. So really excited about that, just taking a shareholding within Link, which is a Manchester-based recruiter.
All right. And when you invest in it, is it, do you need to be hands-on in it? Is that in your nature? Or can you just throw the money and then step back and...
Yeah, I think you have to be I think you have to invest in founding teams first and foremost who can run the business. You have to be able to add value. So I guess if you were to ask Mike and Joe that question, the key is that I can add strategic value. And sometimes, look, if you're focused on strategy, you also have to be able to, two sides to the coin there. You've got strategy and you've got the execution piece. So I think if you're focused on strategy, yes, you do have to be involved in some of the execution piece. But at the same time, you're investing in founding teams who have the ability to be able to drive that themselves.
Show of hands, would you say that the last 2 years were difficult? Yes? Okay. No? Anybody? Just one? Okay. What sector were you in? And, okay. So there's pockets out there that are okay. So for everybody else, it's it's been a bit of a tough ride. I've launched a couple of businesses myself in that time, and I've seen a couple of lean years on my rec direct business, and I don't mind saying it. It's been hard, but in part of that process, you shed a lot of things. So you you tend to trim down the first. What's the first thing that you do when you get in trouble?
Stuff.
Yeah, staff, tech, training, everything. Right, everything gets cut down to bare bones. So the theme here today is building it back better. And I suppose what I want to get from you two guys is understanding when you're advising the people out there, what does that mean? Are we like, I love that you built an for an MBO. That's, I think it's really realistic in the way things are moving at the moment. But are we building businesses based on headcount now? Or are we like, can you kind of give me an insight into what your vision is of a recruitment business when you're analyzing it and then when you're looking to build it back better?
To answer your first part about headcount, I don't think that's going to matter anymore. I think ultimately all businesses, no matter what sector you're in, need to get closer to the numbers and get closer to the management accounts, and they need to look at bottom line EBITDA and return on investment and look at that and think about where that number is. Gone are the days where I think people would say, I'm going to get to 30 staff and I'm going to have this huge big turnover. I think that ship has sailed. And I think people are going to have to get more choosy about where they spend their money and who they hire as well. So I think it will be a super competitive market, but I think those that do survive and thrive off the back of these challenging years that you've mentioned, I think they'll be the winners, and they'll go on and kick on and become really successful. But there's no denying the fact that there's a lot of change out there just now. There's a lot of change in flux. So, and what's right for one sector is not right for a different sector. So it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what to do, but get close to your numbers and try to drive bottom line profit, I think will be the most important thing.
You going to be contrarian here? Or?
No, 100%. I think average productivity per head is a key metric you should be measuring in your business. I think you should always be measuring that. But the reality is we are at the forefront of the economic cycle. I don't know why I'm so close to this, by the way. If anyone's finding that awkward, I am extremely. But average productivity per head is a key metric you should be measuring in your business. And I think we are at the forefront of the economic cycle. So the reality is, when markets are tough, you are going to have a smaller business. The key is to be able to identify when the market is starting to turn and then scale at an appropriate rate. I think the problem we've had historically is when markets were booming, we actually tried to grow too fast, and you've actually got to be able to balance productivity and growth at the same time. Sometimes there simply isn't the ability in your business to be able to grow. Therefore, you should be focused purely on productivity. And at other times when you see market trends coming back, the key is to be able to scale it a way that you can maintain average productivity per head while at the same time having a dual focus on the growth side.
How do you break down the metric on productivity?
um, Bottom line, you've got sales and you've got costs. If you look at your financial management within a business, really simplify it. So you've got average billings per head and you've got average cost per consultant. The easiest thing you can control is your cost base. Yes, you can influence your sales, but you can't necessarily control it to the same degree. So although I said staff earlier, unfortunately, the reality is when you're right sizing and downsizing in a downturn, that does mean that unfortunately one of your biggest costs is going to be your staff. Therefore, you need to right size from a personnel perspective. But you also need to be really rigorous with regards to cost management. I don't think enough recruitment companies typically have a rigorous process and a culture of being really lean and focused with regards to the costs they have in their business, getting super lean. And then the key is to be super rigorous again with regards to your sales strategy and also how you execute against that on the sales floor to ensure that the right number of consultants are producing the right average billings per head.
Okay. If I could put you in your younger self, but in today. So if you were, what age were you when you set up Peace Recruitment?
I was 30.
You're 30. And you were
25.
25 when you did Liquid. If you guys could be that person today in this market building your businesses again, would you build a different business or what would you build?
Well, look, from my perspective, again, there's an element of luck involved in this, and people don't always want to hear that. But the market that I entered, it was a perfect time. There was big margins, long average hours per temp. So we had the ability to be able to ride the tailwinds of the economic cycle that was behind us. As time went on, that market, the margins decreased and compliance requirements went up. So strangely, what you actually saw was we timed it well in the sense that that market became more and more difficult for competitors to penetrate because there simply wasn't as much money to be made. So we managed to make up for reduced margins with larger scale while at the same time having a bit of a moat around our business because it became less attractive. Some of that stuff is just luck. So the reality is I would not now be able to start a business in the same market where I was extremely successful. We built the number one player in the space. We were the best in the world at what we did. I'm not entirely sure I'd be able to do that again because the reality is the structural conditions of the market just aren't the same. So I think you just have to accept that sometimes. So in answer to your question, Dalta, would I be able to do it again was kind of almost the gist. And what would I do differently? No, I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't go after that market again because the market isn't as attractive. And the truth is that did I know that at the time? No, I just got lucky. So I think you always have to be able to sort of, look back on your successes and appreciate how much was within your control and how much was foresight and how much was just being in the right place at the right time.
What about you, Chris?
And no, I'd probably just do OnlyFans.
What particular thing would you sell first?
In terms of in the
Your
business,
feet? Or
no, my feet. No, I'll show you later. It's tremendous. No, in all honesty, I would, if I was rebuilding again now, I would do business development only. I would niche in the market that I know. I would build it tech first. So I'd have to get a little bit of capital and get the right bit of tech.
When you say you do business development only, what do you mean?
I would go and win the clients. I would do the relationships because I think the people that have got the closest relationships and, where the work's done face to face, over lunch, in meals, and they know who I am, I would be very selective about the sector I went into.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe something like a cyber sector or something just now, or maybe public sector or nuclear or power data centers, pharmaceuticals. I would look at where was the booming market and I would do the business development because I'm quite happy doing cold calls. And then I would build a tech first business. And I would put that at the forefront of everything I did. And then to supplement me from a candidate perspective, I would put in 2 or 3 180 recruiters based overseas to do all the resourcing for me.
You'd run a very lean, almost lifestyle business. Even though you had the event and the success and all of that, you would do it differently.
Now, I mean, if I was to go back 15 years ago, I wouldn't change a single thing. I've done everything I wanted to do. I've achieved the goal that I set out to do. So no, I wouldn't change anything. Apart from the payoff to my ex-wife. But if I was rebuilding now, and we're talking real terms, because it's not we kind of jump in the DeLorean and gun it to 88 and go back to 2009 and rebuild it again. But real terms, if I was rebuilding again now, that I would build a very lean tech first model and I would remove any employment legislation in the UK and hire people overseas initially to get my headcount up. And then I'd maybe bring in another big hitter and then hire some more people overseas for the grunt work. I just think, not getting too deep about it, but I just think as well, the new generation of recruiters that are coming through and the hard work that's required, the barriers to entry, the opportunity to get people on the phone, the reliance on email first and the phone fright that some of these newbies have, not everybody. So I don't know, sweeping generalization, but I think there's more at play than the external sectors, than the external sort of concerns you might have about the politics or the change in market. I think there's an intrinsic apathy with some people these days that they're not going to. We went through a shit ton in 15 years. Some things a hell of a lot worse than what we're going through today. 100%. Like started in the middle of the recession, then then you had economic meltdown, Brexit in Scotland, and all that stuff. And the indie ref folk was mega. The projects for construction, projects weren't getting built because they were worried we were going to say yes to leaving the UK. And then you chuck in COVID on the back of it. Nothing's going to get any worse than that. And now we're saying the market's a bit sticky. I could name you 5 things that were a lot hell of a stickier of the previous 14 years to the last couple of years. And every year we either stayed the same or grew. And that was just through grit and determination and clarity on purpose that we were hell bent on getting to where we were going to get to. So I think there's definitely a motivation, apathy. I don't know. There's something more at play than this external. There's something else happening out there, I think.
Alex, when you're advising businesses on their growth strategy now, I know you're saying about productivity, but how does the hiring work now for recruitment businesses and projecting? Like, are you projecting, hey, we're going to grow by 10 headcount this year? Or is it you're just more focused in on what the key accounts you're going to bring in? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I think there's different phases of growth, and I think you have to understand what phase you're going through. I think one of the mistakes we make is potentially trying to grow too fast and not having the foundations in place. So, there was a talk just before this one where I described 4 key things that I think prevent you from growing as a recruitment company. The 4 biggest things. One is a lack of leaders. 2 is a lack of scalable infrastructure. 3 is a lack of new quality business, and 4 is a lack of cash flow. So they're examples of 4 things where I think each of those is an entire, topic in itself. But I think you have to get some of those things right before you go for growth. Otherwise, you're a bit of a leaky bucket. So you're trying to grow. And at the same time, I think that's why you often see companies go from 10 heads to 20 heads, back to 15, down to 10, et cetera, et cetera. So I think understanding the phase you're in and being able to look at those 4 things and say, what are the things that are going to prevent me from continuing to grow, getting the foundations right and spending time on those things before unnecessarily adding headcount, ensuring that as you're adding headcount, your productivity per head isn't really starting to dip too aggressively, because it's always going to dip when you're bringing in people into the business. But there should be a plan behind that. And then strong financial management ensures that as you continue growing, hopefully it's a bit of a bit of an L curve. I don't know if that answers your question.
And Chris, just to jump back into what you said before about the apathy for the phone, I think we're all experiencing a horrendous amount of in-mails and messages from people selling us stuff that's just automation out there. How how do we get these people back on the phone and not relying on the automation first?
It's difficult. You've got to try and, for me, years and years ago, we tried to invest in the personal branding stuff because we wanted to try and make sure that when we did call them or we did email them, they'd already seen us. So I think making sure you're very present on wherever your people live, and that might be face-to-face events, it might be a golf outing, it might be just LinkedIn. It has to be a multiple touch point in order to turn that cold call or that initial introduction into a slightly warmer call. And, there'll be times when I come to events like this, or I would go to an event within construction. They go, "Oh, are you Chris Peace, right?" And I'd be like, I didn't know who they were, but they knew they'd received something from me or they'd seen something from one of my team members. So you've got to give yourself the best chance by warming that stuff up. And also just trying multiple different tactics. There's no silver bullet for winning business, but try and try again, effort, and really target. But I would avoid the blatant automation. And then I would try to avoid being overly personal as well. So there's a sweet spot. There is a sweet spot. But warm up the calls through various options to try and make the cold calls, but just keep trying and go back old school. I've got a client that I coach with down in London, and they do drop-ins. They do drop-ins, and they've done 20%, and they're targeting another 20% this year coming. They literally go out to their clients, industrial and warehouses and that around the Kent area to win business. We used to do that all the time. Nobody does that anymore. Folk are too shit scared.
Yeah.
They'd rather sit behind a Zoom that's been pre-organized.
Alex, when you're speaking to your advisories and they're like, "Hey, I want to do what you've done. Like, I want to ride off into the sunset, make the money, do all of that." Is that still out there for them? Are trade sales still happening? Is like, what do they have to do to get to that point in this day?
Yeah, trade sales is still happening, but if you look at M&A appetite, the number of trade sales that are taking place is down. because again, looking at where we are in the economic cycle, look, again, this goes back to the luck thing, right? The reality is, to build a great recruitment company and then sell it, you could have two companies that are equally good. One hits the market at the right time from an exit perspective, i.e., it's when appetite is really high, it's when debt is cheap, it's when you've got these large private equity firms that can borrow lots and lots of money at low interest rates and have an appetite for buying companies. You can have another company which is equally good where those things aren't in play, and that doesn't necessarily happen. So I don't think you should necessarily put your hat on, I have to exit my business to make lots of money. That's simply not true. You can make a huge, if you build a really successful recruitment company, it should be hugely cash generative, and you can take out 50% of your operating profit year on year and become a multimillionaire over a number of years. So, I think people get too focused sometimes on the only way to make a lot of money out of recruitment as a founder is to via an exit. And yeah, it's lovely if you can do that because you get money, in one large sum. But at the same time, it's not the only way to be successful.
What do you think, Chris?
The question is, do you think there's a chance of people selling more often? Probably not as much just now than it has been in the past. Just interest rates and things. It is more difficult. You're going to have to scale to a certain number, and the stats don't lie. There's only a very, very small percentage of businesses sell, and obviously a huge percentage of businesses go out of business. So I think the straight answer is there probably is less opportunity unless you're willing to do those hard yards. And that's the thing. I mean, are you willing to, I don't know if you guys were to look on your phones right now, how much time you're spending on socials, Instagram and TikTok, not work related, or how much time you're doing on that. Can you dedicate that amount of time per day to graft in your business to make an extra 20 calls? Or can you dedicate that amount of time that you're spending wasting time? Can you give up going to see your local football team who you've had a season ticket for 20 years and do 4 hours on the phone or out doing meetings with clients? Are you willing to put in those hard yards? And I think fortune favors the brave. And it's funny, the more you sort of practice or the harder you work, the luckier you might get. And if you're willing to put in those hard yards, I think there is still opportunities out there, but only for those that really, really want it. It's a mindset thingy, I think, as much as timing and all the rest. You do get lucky. You do get lucky sometimes.
So just to close it out, guys, things are changing so fast. Like 2 years, 5 years time, what are the big changes going to be? What are recruitment companies going to look like the good ones?
Mm. Yeah, I think certainly in 5 years, I think we're going to see huge changes in the industry. The truth is that none of us have a crystal ball. So rather than trying to predict necessarily exactly what it's looking like, I think what we've got to do is try and predict where we're still going to have the most value. And that is on the phone. And it goes back to the point that Chris was making earlier, that I think you have to be able to, any high performance environment with recruitment, I think it should be phone first. And I think that's even more important now than it has ever been. And I think it's going to become increasingly important, as anything that can be automated is going to be automated away by AI. AI agents are going to take over in lots of areas where they can already do things better than us, and they're going to be able to do things significantly better than us within 5 years. So again, I don't know what the future looks like in 5 years, but I know that the typical business model of a recruitment company is going to be flipped on its head. The challenge you've got to sell a recruitment company is that you need scale. The problem you've therefore got in the future is that recruitment companies are typically going to be a lot smaller from a headcount perspective. So if someone's looking to buy your recruitment company, they don't necessarily have the risk management piece with regards to scale and diversification of client spread, of consultant spread in particular. So I think the key, therefore, is just to understand where you can add the most value. And the value is going to continue to be in that influence piece rather than maybe your ability to be able to run an automated outreach cadence, which, is going to get taken over by AI in time.
Sounds like it's nicely suited for companies that are going to do MBOs, really, right? Can you give us your insight on it?
Yeah. Where the market might go, I think I agree with what you said, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. I agree with that entirely. I think, I think it will get difficult, and I think the stronger ones will survive. I think we'll see more exodus generally from the UK, with people going places where it's more buoyant and more spend. I did a webinar the other day there about Dubai and their requirements, and the tax situation over there is mega. I mean, the need that they have for people over there is phenomenal. I mean, ridiculous. And so, you know, if you don't like the music that's playing in the nightclub, go to a different nightclub. And I wonder if the music being played in the UK right now is going to get your foot tapping or get you on the dance floor or not. So if I was a young business person now, I would maybe consider moving to a different location. I think we'll see a bit of that, which is probably why the UK government are talking about bringing in an exit task. But for me, what I would do is not focus on the money, not focus on an exit because it's too far away. It doesn't feel real. Focus on just bringing your best energy and your best self every single day. Try and control the culture within your organization and have fun because let's be honest, we're quite lucky. I mean, you guys are obviously giving up your evening tonight to come and learn and try and do things. So you guys have got a better chance than the ones that are sitting watching Netflix at home right now. To be honest, you're trying to network and you're trying to go further. So I think you guys have got a really good chance. But just put your best foot forward every single day. Try and put a smile on your face because it could be a hell of a lot worse. I could name 100 jobs where you've not got the same earning potential that you've got now, and you don't get a chance to just sit and talk shit on the phone to people every day and make deals and do negotiation and do a bit of marketing. Plus, if it does go pear-shaped, you've got such a diverse skill range. You've got so many other avenues you could go into with the resilience and the skills that you've brought up within recruitment. So I just think just roll up your sleeves, put your best foot forward, and I'm sure it'll be good if it's meant to be, without being too hippie about it. But the market will contract and the strong will survive. And I think the ones that do survive will go on to be amazing.
Any questions for our two guests? Yes, Tuna.
You mentioned about having financial savvy sense when you're booking contracts, etc. Typically, salespeople, just from their comfort zone, and you tend to shy away from that. What's the best bit of advice you would give them in order to upskill, in order to get them really comfortable with those numbers now?
Bring an accountant into the business. So that, there we go. Oh, you set that one up, did you? It's funny. There we go. But it is the right answer. There was some self-interest in the question, but the truth is, it is the right answer. So look, the reality is, you need you are, as the leader of a business, you are always the biggest bottleneck, and the biggest bottleneck is your understanding of how to be able to grow different functions where you aren't necessarily an industry expert with the required experience. So even if it's not a case of bringing someone in internally, being able to go to an external advisor.
The guys are doing 100 dials a day. They can't get through to the decision maker, so they're not actually getting to practice their craft and getting better. What are we thinking?
What sector are you in? You're in tech, which is having a bit of a rough ride at the moment, right? Yeah, I think, to be honest, if the need turns, probably they will come back to you, and sometimes you just need to wait for that crest of a wave. Could you go out and see the clients directly? There was a client who was meant to be here tonight, actually, who wants to really work with a client, and he's literally got, this is like obviously like guerrilla marketing idea. Literally sent me the picture of it. He's got a right arm, like a severed right arm, like off a mannequin, and he's posting it out to just 3 good clients. And the message inside was a handwritten letter saying, "I would give my right arm to work with you guys." Like, genuinely, that's his, or you'll see it on LinkedIn eventually. You need to think about, if the phone's not working, you need to do LinkedIn voice clips. If that's not working, try to send them a text message. If that's not working, try and speak to different clients. It's a graft. There's absolutely no doubt, but you just need to take the opportunities when you get them. And yeah, maybe just try a different sector for the time being, pivot. There's, we're certainly not going to solve that problem of people answering the phone for you in a 20-minute podcast on a Thursday night, unfortunately. It's a tough one, but you just need to try different touch points.
Yeah, I think maybe our next couple of guests will be able to kind of go into a bit more detail on the marketing side in terms of value-added events, clay automation, etc. So it's about warming up those and creating value and making them want to come and be part of whatever you're selling,
As a sales guy, just to answer that question, The only thing I'd add is if you've got a 5% reach rate, typically you want to be driving towards a 15% reach rate. So is that the reality of your market, or could you have better data quality? Do you have local numbers if you're calling internationally? Because again, there's some pretty easy ways where maybe you could turn up that reach rate to get towards at least 10%, maybe instead of 5%. I think as well, call management, right? If you go into the science of sales, it's a 3-step process. 1, prep for the call. 2, execute the call. 3, debrief the call. If you think about that as your call management process, those 3 critical things to get better, I think prepping for the call is incredibly important. Having an optimized, structured approach with regards to your opener. How do I open a call in a way that will get me phase progression to the next stage of the call? Once you've got to the next stage of call, what's my value proposition? Once I get past that, how do I earn another 30 seconds to be able to maybe manage objections? What are the 6 most typical objections I get, and how do I manage those? Once I've done that, how do I ask for a meeting? Again, all of those things, I think you can break down the science of what you do. So I'm not necessarily suggesting you can massively increase your reach rate, but what you can do is make sure that when you are actually executing on the call, your prep and your debrief is aligned with your sales strategy and how you execute against those calls to ensure that you're making the most out of it. And look, I came from an environment back in the day, 100 calls a day wasn't like actually too bad. I would have made 100 phone calls a day. I know recruitment is very different now, but if I had 5 shots on goal every single day and I could turn 2 or 3 of those into a meeting, and 2 or 3 of those meetings would turn into one like tier 1 job, I could pick up 5 jobs a week. So again, I think you've got to understand sales funnel management, because all science is sales funnel management, and then get really, really into the weeds with regards to how you optimize your sales funnel, and then understand the metrics of what's going to lead you there. I think showing people that stuff gives them clarity of task, which makes them understand if I do X, it leads to Y, which in turn leads to Z. So again, for me, that was always really motivational, because if I knew I had to make 100 phone calls to get X jobs, well, that's okay. I'll make 100 phone calls every single day to generate the jobs a week. So there's not necessarily any silver bullets with this stuff, other than I think getting really, really into the weeds and make sure your prep and your debrief is aligned with, you know, turning those key sort of levers with regard, or pulling those levers. There we go. I just spat everywhere as well. It's embarrassing. Pulling those levers to ensure that you're maximizing the opportunities you do get.
All right, round of applause for Chris and Alex. All right, so next guest, Rich Kibbar, everybody. So Rich has been in our recruitment community since day one, and I suppose we kind of built our businesses together. And yeah, always grateful for your input.
That's brilliant. It is insane to see how far what was Lockdown Leadership Network and the whole RepWide thing has come along. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Rich, give us a bit of insight into your background and what you do.
Yeah, so from my point of view, I started off as everybody, fell into recruitment, needed some money as quickly as possible. For some reason, decided to go into perm recruitment. And then, so I worked at a company that did tech sales recruitment for about 10 years or so. All I did was just new business development, just did not speak to any candidate for the first 3 years. So when a candidate actually came to, or wanted to, when I moved into 360 as opposed to 180 and then management direction, things like that, I was like, what is this? People are actually, so I echo your thoughts in terms of what, you know, like our dials were 80 dials, 16 decision makers, 1 job spec. And if you did that, you'd get a spec a day, and they were your metrics. Whereas I totally understand now is that the metrics are different. So we'll go through different ways about how you can get better conversations, just to echo what Alex was saying as well before.
How long have you been out in the wild outside of recruitment in the supplier world?
In the supplier world, where there's suppliers, we're everywhere. They say that recruiters are like locusts, but suppliers are just as bad. We're the worst. Yeah, so about 6 years or so, we've had RepBound, maybe a bit, yeah. And all we do is provide marketing for recruitment agencies.
Awesome. All right, next guest up, Mr. David Cahill. Looking like a tech entrepreneur.
Mate, do you know what I mean? So the reason I've got my hat on today, Dualta and I were in meetings all week down in London, and I had to do a rush job of shaving my head today in the hotel. And unfortunately, managed to scalp myself. So it's not a fashion statement. It's more of it's a large plaster. Show you later, darling.
We didn't get any. You weren't getting heckled, were you? No.
No, I mean, it's Alex and I've
done.
worked, yeah. I gave you a tap.
Dave and Alex work together, but give us a rundown of your background, Dave.
Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of people in this room, actually. Obviously, Mike, Joe, Dave Webb, and obviously Alex. You know, we were all lucky enough to go through that liquid journey, with Alex. So, cut my teeth with that. Developed as contracts, social work for 10 years. Took a bit of a hiatus in between with non-competes, and then went over to Hong Kong to focus on finance tech.
Was he any use, Alex? Was he any use?
To be fair to like what
I did all right, didn't I, Mike? Me and Mike had quite a big rivalry running around for a few years. But yeah, it was a great company to be at and to learn from, you know, and still to this day, you know, the ethoses that Alex taught us then is really what is really what's what kind of got me to where we are now.
And where you are now is living in Bali.
Living in Bali, so I'm flying back tomorrow. So we after being in Hong Kong for about 2.5 years, I identified that there was quite a big need, quite a big gap in the market on candidate generation for referrals. I think both at Liquid and at Gravitas, referrals was by far both companies' highest ROI on candidate generation, but the lowest results basically. Usually had one or two consultants who were good at it, and there was consultants who were good at it, and the rest were pretty average. So we've built a system to basically change that, which went live about four or 5 weeks ago over in Australia. So we've been making quite steady progress there. Obviously, Dulce's come on board to take us into the UK and other places as well.
All right. Okay. So I suppose one of the questions earlier was about the phone's not working. What are we going to do? Recruitment's changing. What are we going to do? We'll dive into this a bit more with you, Jamie, as well. But what are we going to do, Rich?
Well, I think like what Alex, just to kind of echo what Alex was saying before, the old school way was smash a phone, 100 calls a day or whatever it may be. Just get them on the phone, and then all of a sudden you could start ringing people through Teams. Whereas the reality is now is that you've got so many. Right, I'll take it one step back. In 2008, a load of businesses were set up off the back of that crash, and they were done on better processes, still with people, done with better processes. Then COVID happened, and at the same time, there's big automation push, and I was a big advocate for it. I still am an advocate for it, but a lot of recruitment businesses were built in 2020 on the back of automation, still with lots of people, but automating tasks. Whereas this new wave coming through is that every recruitment business now and every firm is going to have AI and agents and agentic AI at the very heart of what it is that they're building. All the tech platforms that we use, everything that we do is going to have. And because of that, I think you are a human being. You place humans with other human beings. And so the most important thing nowadays is how can you get FaceTime? And it doesn't have to be I'm going to get FaceTime and I need that job spec right now. You have to do that future plan. Like in marketing, you have like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And you have to there's going to be even more work for the top of funnel stuff, running the events, getting in interim directors, getting in key people like, you know, an event like this, for example, but specifically for your market. And it is going to be a lot more community driven activity now than spec outs still work. Spec outs, they still work. However, communities are a huge play at the minute. And where I see that with other tech recruiters, they're sacked off the phone, not saying that the phone doesn't work. The phone does work. However, it's community first, followed up by phone calls.
Dave, you love the phone, right?
I love the phone. I spend my life in it, but I think if you're getting, so to go back to your, because I had some thoughts about this when you mentioned it. If you're getting five people on the phone from 100, each one of those calls you should come away with some form of TSI, targeted sales information. And again, this is stealing from what Alex taught us years ago. That is, you've got 5 opportunities to get a referral into something else at that point. It could be market information. It could be anything. But I think you need to be maximizing on each one of those. And when it comes to kind of like talking about, you know, obviously embracing the new ways of working now, like
first of all, breaking down, like, what does your business need? Does it need a lot of companies doing job focused markets where actually, being open, our product isn't suited. Right. What tech is there on the market which is going to get your consultants on the phone, which is going to scrape jobs from job boards, is going to give them a list of people to phone first thing on the morning when they get in who have got jobs, etc. If they are in candidate focused markets, though, right, what software is out there? So actually, every single phone call gives them a referral. It's generating content from which is relevant to teachers, for example, with what we were just talking about there. So you're creating more and more warm phone calls for your consultants and standing out.
I'm always interested in this because the personal branding thing has worked out for me, and it's worked out for some people. But should the business drive the marketing activity, or should the recruiter? Because if we go back to what Chris was saying earlier, he wanted to be the person in control of the relationships on the new model that he was describing. And should that business be the one doing the events, doing the podcast, doing all of that, or should we be letting our recruiters out there to do the personal branding?
It depends what you want out of your business. I think, we will be taught, we were all taught as recruiters, you're essentially running your own desk, and your own desk is your own business. So what would you do to get that business going? And so the answer to that is, well, the recruiters need to set up events and the recruiters need to do everything. However, if I get your point in terms of, if that's the case, well, what happens if that recruiter just sets up and goes by themselves, or is that always going to hamper business? So I think that there has to be some kind of backup, if you will, to make sure that it's not all in the hands of just one recruiter. And when that recruiter just up sticks and goes, which you do, a very few people just set up a recruitment business having never done recruitment before. And so there's got to be some sort of contingency plans in there for sure. But it should be, if you're looking to scale the business, it should be business led. Naturally, if you're not looking to scale the business and you drive it and it's going to be your own sort of baby for life, then you need to be front and center. The business owner needs to be front and center.
Alex and Dave both give excellent answers on the full metrics, to the gentleman's problem down there. But what's the marketing solution?
So a story that I can give you is that there's a company that we work with who focus on tech. So your answer was we place tech. Tech is massive. And so I'm sure that there'll be a niche within that. These guys, they got up to 30 people just before COVID. Just after COVID, in that kind of golden heyday of 2022 for everybody. 30 people. They went through a huge change and they're back down to 3. So lost 20, a huge, essentially 90% of their workforce. What they've done is they've billed more as 3 people than they ever did as 30. And the reason why they did that is because they just went, why am I going at this huge market? I'm just going to say, right, we've got 250 clients. There are 250 people who are between these metrics. They do it on company size and level of funding, essentially. So we've got 250 prospects that we can ever deal with. They're only ever 250 companies. And they honed in so much on their ICP, their ideal client. And I think marketing and sales goes hand in hand nowadays. But ultimately, when everything that you do, both sales, marketing, all activities, is driven to essentially an incredibly cash-rich small niche, then I don't think you can go really far wrong, providing that the service backs up. So I would say be really, really, really clear with who it is that you're aiming towards and who you want to win business from. And just anybody who's got a job is not the answer.
Yeah. What do you think, Dave? I think going on to that, anybody who's got a job is definitely not the answer. Qualifying the quality of a business that you're bringing in. I think I would always go down the route. I would rather have 3 nailed on 100%. It doesn't need to be exclusive, I would say, but nailed on than 10 to 12 wafty. I'm focusing on those. I think in this market, especially, less sometimes is more. Focus on what is focus on what is more most likely to deliver, and then go from there.
Does anybody have any life problems they'd like us to solve? Any questions from anything that we've talked about so far? No?
your experience, you get 5 shots. 5 shots to be able to select a mean. If you're only getting 5 shots a day to practice, is there any tools to sort of simulate? Like, you can role play with people, right? But it's not the same as someone answering the phone that you don't know.
Yeah. Oh, from my point of view, I'll let Jamie answer that one. As in, if it's something to do with training and improving, and
Join Recwa.
Yeah.
Join Orca.
yeah,
They might.
So I'll say you've just perfect plug for you, that wasn't it, Dualta?
I want to go back to the problem. He can't get the people on the phone. But what do you do next?
So is it, I mean, there's a few different elements here. The easiest way to get someone on the phone is what I find is an intro. Like, who go to your network, who can potentially introduce you to it. And one of the things that was great about being in Hong Kong is that if I wanted to speak to somebody at Goldman Sachs, I'd literally bang it out to my network, the expat network, and within 10 minutes, somebody would say, I play golf with him on a Saturday. Now, don't get me wrong, that's in Hong Kong. It's a much smaller community, but here it's similar. Go on their LinkedIn. Who are you connected to? Who can do that warm intro? Because that is the most powerful.
If you're not as relentless as Big, if you know what I mean. And I've worked with this guy now, and he's relentless. Like he'll turn over every rock for a lead. But from a marketing standpoint,
So I would say generally the best business that you'll ever get is through a referral. And there are like pros and cons, and sometimes a referral wants to take the piss a little bit, and they expect more, they expect blood, and I get that. However, the best way in any way to have a conversation is warm them up first so that they are excited or at least keen to have a conversation with you. Whether that is because their mate has told them you need to speak to this guy because he's pretty good, or you go check out what information that they've got because they're pretty good. Kind of build it so that they come is the old field of dreams phrase. And so you got to build something that makes people want to have a conversation with you. And whether that is events, whether that is world-class information that nobody else has got access to. Too many recruiters will regurgitate information that they get from like a Crunchbase or a Deloitte or something like that and try and pass it off as their own. Get unique information that only you have access to. So, and there's other ways, whether it's meetups or just taking people out, getting them pissed. I mean, I know in certain sectors, I'm going to point at Shiv in the law side of things, is how can I get barristers as drunk as possible, as quickly as possible? And then lo and behold, you're going to have a load of business because that's just how that industry works. But ultimately, build something where it entices people to actually come so that they have that conversation with you.
I suppose the theme here is building it back better. Right?
Yeah.
So my business is decimated. I'm replanning. I'm looking at my tech. I'm looking at my marketing solution. How do I get started? What do I do?
It goes back to who's your target clients. Not only the companies, but the decision makers within those ones. I would also say that I know a handful of recruiters now that are selling agents, as in ChatGPT agents. They're building bots that replace the entry level placements that they were making. So they're selling the bots essentially. That is, whilst it's not the big fees, you can just have this kind of recurring revenue based off pre-built bots. And so I know I'm addressing to yourself only because you made a mistake of actually asking a question. But I think it all boils down to, where do I start is, right, who's my target market, and do all the pestle analysis and making sure they've actually got money and there's a need there. And where do I start with the tech? It is, what is the most future-proof tech that's out there? Don't get, oh man. Is there anybody from Bullhorn here? No. Bullhorn, for example, what they're doing is they're like plugging things in after the event. And so if anybody's on, is anybody actually on Bullhorn?
I have nothing to do.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But for example, it's like that was a brilliant system, but it's been built 10, 15 years or so ago, and they happen to get the plugins afterwards. Whereas if you're future-proofing it now, you build your entire ecosystem about what is going to be in the next 5 years, and that next 5 years is AI powered.
What does it look like? So what does the future recruiter look like?
I mean, I think like everyone says, it's a difficult one to answer. I think a future recruiter looks like there's someone who is on the phone for 8 hours a day, but who is being fed leads from the different elements of tech. Just to go back to one of the questions I was asked there, if it was me with a recruitment business now, there's so many options for tech on the market now, which is going to really truly push your needle, and only speak to those suppliers, because you will be getting phoned by 20, 30, 40 of us a day. Right. What is the business needs? Does the business need to save money on compliance? Does the business need to work on efficiencies? Does the business need to generate more jobs, more candidates? Whatever. Look at what is the business's problem first. Once you've decided that, then you know which aspects of tech to look at, and don't waste your time speaking to people who don't fit in that, because everybody will try and sell you something. Everybody will tell you it's going to change your life, but actually, if it's not addressing your problem, it's a waste of time for both parties. So for me, that's the first. That would be the first thing I would be doing. Once that's done, and going back to what you asked with the future, you will then be able to bring your consultants in and keep them consistently bang, which is the USP of a recruiter. An AI bot's never gonna have those relationships. TAs, they don't get paid commission. I'm nearly small there. They don't care much. That is everyone's. I would assume USP in this room. And in 5 years' time, you will have a lot smaller offices, but they will be noisy. It'll be back to the liquid days where you walk in and it's just like noise, but a lot smaller and a lot more efficient. But they, with them being fed leads that they need to do to make the billings. Basically, that's my dream, personal opinion.
I think it's an excellent one to stop it on. Any questions? Let me rehash that just for the podcast. So he's in legal recruitment, struggling with sourcing and engaging with candidates.
So for me, your first element is you need to start forming the communities. Referrals should be your number one priority right now. You should be network. Every single candidate you go meet should be introducing you to 3 more, and they should be from a very start know exactly what you're looking for, and some point because you've got to train these people as well. You've got to give them the information of who they should be recommending to you. But to do that as well, you also need to build your presence. So, going back to what Rich was saying, look at your niche. What information can you take to these meetings that no one else is going to tell them? Because even if they're not looking now, partner recruitment is obviously, as you'll know, is a long-term game. You're probably not going to get much from the first meeting. It's going to take you, I would guess, years to cultivate some of these relationships. So you need to give them consistent reasons to be speaking to you, and then go from there. Would be my advice.
I think I did a lot of independent recruiter advisory work 2 years back. You did a lot of it with me, and I think you've probably coached quite a few guys who've done legal recruitment as independent recruiters.
Yeah. So, my take on it is that I get that if you're a startup, cash is life. Cash is your oxygen in that business. So you're thinking, right, shit, I need to make placements ASAP. And you've got to balance that with, I also want to be in business in 3 to 4 years' time. So a question is, roughly, these people that you're working with, that you want to place, how long are they in a job for? Do they swap every year, or do they swap every 3 or 4 years-ish?
On average, I'd say some of the ones that are newly qualified to maybe 4 years qualified, maybe 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Partners and kind of director level, some of the directors will come around after a year or 2, depending on the package.
Yeah.
Whereas someone that's 10 years senior, they might be in the job for about 10 or 15 years now. So it can vary depending on.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah, and so you've obviously you've got a need, as in right now I've got a job and I need to fill it. There'll be lots of people envious of you in the fact that you can pull jobs just like that. There'll be lots of people wanting it the other way around. So subtle gloating for you. I look at it in, so say for example, a candidate they're at a company for 36 months, 3 years, 36 months. They're only ever looking for one of those 36 months. So 35 out of 36, or 1/36 of that time, they're only really interested in what it is a recruiter's got to tell them, because all they're doing is just pushing jobs. I've got this job, do you want it? or I've got this extra base salary, do you want it? And so on. And of course they'll listen, but if the money's good. And so, yeah, like everybody's been saying, it's balancing that kind of, I've got this really interesting thing here for you, have it, versus the long-term play. So you can keep in contact with them every month over those 35 months until after the 36th month, they're looking. And that comes through. I know I keep saying getting pissed as a way forward just because Dualta is here. And if you want to get into, yeah, alcohol and money talks. However, it doesn't have to be that. It can be any kind of events. You see it all the time. People going out to get in a box or whatever it may be, depending on what your budget is at a sporting event or anything like that. But it really is how can you differentiate yourself? And so in order to get candidates you got to give them something that they want, and they don't want a job every 1 month. They want information that's going to make them feel better. They're going to want to feel better about themselves. They're going to want to get information exactly like this that's going to help them improve in their job, and they're going to want to go away and go, right, I can make my job easier by doing X, Y, and Z. So partnering, if I were you, I would partner with there would be like high level interim, like chief counsel officers or chief legal officers, things like that. I'll see if you can partner in with those, because they're the access to all the good people below them as well.
How much should you be spending on marketing as a percentage of your GP and FI?
That's going to go to you, that one.
It depends on how much you want to push. Obviously, I would say between roughly 5 to 10%. Naturally, I would say, you've got to be pushed towards 20% and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to throw in there, like some businesses will include LinkedIn job, as in the ability to send out in-mails as part of their marketing spend, or job boards, job slots, things like that as part of their marketing spend. Ultimately, anywhere between 5 and 20, depends on how much you want to turn the dial of personal branding, proper content, research pieces, all things like that, as well as throwing it at events and so on. So, yeah. So what we're seeing that works really well at the minute is, I don't mean this disrespectfully of recruiters, it just is what it is like, if I was to say something, as in if a recruiter was to say something to, oh, this is how you should run your job, do your job better, Mr. Lawyer, or what sector are you in? Okay. So this is how you develop better, as an example, and it comes from a recruiter, and then they get, obviously that's just going to get shot down and not interested. A prophet is not welcome in their own home, is what they say. So what works really well is, certainly from a long-term play, do partnering with either interims or people that sell a completely different service to the same market, asking them, so like newsletters, roundtables, getting those people on board and building up relationships that way. A bit like what Dualta does in terms of bring key people into the room, ask them questions, and then that you're seen as the kind of connector between everybody. So I would do that. That as a tactic is good. I would also,
if you can invest in it and you have the capability to have 4 people today.
Yeah. Personality drives a lot in that. The other thing is, you are also seen as a recruiter, and a recruiter should also know the market. So as old school as this is, you should know all staffing levels, skills, entry, what skills are being needed to come into the market, what people should be getting paid, perks, benefits. So your classic kind of like, this is how you hire a developer and this is what you need to pay them. This is what skills you have. That should just be a given, I would say, every 6 to 12 months anyway, as well.
We've had a lot of success from salary surveys over the years. And it's not just releasing them, it's the research piece to get the information, to engage candidates that you're looking to get. And then they give you the information on the basis that they're going to get everybody else's info, in that they're worth this. And then you give them the information. So there's a couple of touch points straight away and engagement. And then you ask them what they thought about it. And then, then you get the meeting. So I think it's a good way.
Yeah. Perception as well goes a long way. I know it's not what you know, it's who you know quite often in staffing and recruitment. So the perception is, oh, if I'm seen with that person or that person knows me, and then all of a sudden, then happy days. And so they must be good because they know insert person's name. So yeah, perception and data and information does go a long way to building that brand in the long run.
All right, guys, that's our guest. We'll get on to the next one pretty soon.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
Last guest. Gee, where was Jamie, you're everywhere, right? I turn on LinkedIn and you're at the TRN one day, and then you're you're everywhere, right?
Network core, yeah.
Give us a rundown into your back.
I spent about 15 years as a recruiter, and then
You failed.
no, I did all right actually. I did all right. I worked for a construction business. It got bought by Randstad. I did a year under the regime, and then it was too corporate for me. I left. I did a startup with two mates from a shed in their back garden. Built that from 3 of us to 37. Had a big falling out with them.
Oh,
They gave me a bag of money and I left.
good bag.
It could have been better. And then it essentially came in to set up a training business and have been doing this for the last 6 years.
Excellent. All right. Mike McBride, second guest.
Alan,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit cold.
Yeah.
I live in Spain, and it's your similar problem, right?
Yeah, I live in Portugal. These are the warmest trousers I've got, and they're linen, so this probably gives you a good idea.
All right. So, Mike, just run down into your background.
So I actually started, the first job I had was around the corner for Oscar Associates. So I was a junior consultant for the best part of 18 months. Decided I didn't like the cold weather and left the UK, and led some pretty decent sized teams in Dubai in oil and gas. And then for nine and a half years, I did aerospace engineering for a company called GQR in Los Angeles. And then
Did I meet you when we went out there, no?
I think I missed it. Yeah. I think, I was away or something. But yeah, you met Rory and all the lads, didn't you? Yeah. So then in the last 12 months at GQR, I was a billing manager, but getting quite involved in marketing strategy. And then decided to start my own agency, specifically on traditionally, we did a lot of brand strategy, marketing, traditional digital marketing. And then, so what we do now is, it's had quite a few faces of the business. So traditionally brand strategy, and then more on the traditional marketing, digital marketing side of things. And then especially over the last 2.5 years, we've just been keeping our ear to the ground what AI, tech, automation is doing. So we've shifted quite a lot in the last 2.5 years to see what that actually means for recruitment. So what we do now, and what really gets me up is what different technology and platforms, specifically from a signal based standpoint, can do for the recruitment industry. So I know a lot of people have been speaking about not having the success on the phones, but we'll probably get into it. It's what can give you the best probability of that success in terms of how you can track for all of these different things using these very intelligent platforms. And that's what we do now.
So you two are the odd couple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through what are we gonna talk about here?
I think it's interesting, like you said, odd couple, because Mike's there going, I've got technology producing all of these signals and information, but I'm all about that. One of my biggest things, we were chatting earlier, I was like, I don't think recruiters should be going anywhere near AI. I think you should have someone like
The business.
the business should be doing that. Either you've got a person in the business that does that, or you've got external consultants or companies that do it for you. But feed the recruiters with the information so that they can do the things we're talking about. They can get on the phone and they can use those signals and those leads to turn that into business development conversations.
We've Mike's company working in our training business, and Jamie been one of the contributors as well. So kind of got an insight into what people do, but be interesting for you guys to. So where does training go from here? So if I'm a young person, I'm getting into recruitment, am I cold calling now, or how's it going to work?
I think it depends on the business you're coming into. I think, and it depends on what the business is providing you with. I think if you're like just saying to like probably most of us in this room, here's a list, call it, and then call it again and call it again and call it again. I'm not sure there's, I mean, there's delayed gratification and there's asking people just to headbutt brick walls. I think you've got to give people the tools so that when they're making, I'm phone first, right? But I absolutely think you've got to give them the tools to be able to have those conversations. But then also, like I alluded to earlier, we've got to give them a structure for what's going to happen on that phone call, and they've got to be like completely, especially if we're talking young people, like they got to be crystal clear on what's going to happen. And I'm not saying we script people, but there's got to be a really clear structure. This is how we open, and then we get objections. This is how we deal with them. And I'm actually not a fan of scripts, but I'm a massive fan of models and structures for everything we do in recruitment. And I think that's where we need to be.
Where does the two worlds meet? Like, as Dave was saying earlier about his idea is be on the phone all day and for the business to be feeding him things that make that happen. How do we make technology make us better with that? And what does that mean for training? So start with you.
Yeah. So I think, probably touched on that quite a few times today, that it has been tough over the last 18 months, like for a lot of recruitment agencies. I've seen it with the agencies that we work with and just, across the board. But, there's been downturns before, like 2016, COVID, where I think some of those playbooks are quite similar. It's like, right, markets are back, there's some confidence in tech or construction, whatever it is. But I do think like next year is probably the first time where the technology and the AI you can build back very differently from a technology, from an AI standpoint, where you don't just need to chuck a few heads at it. Because, to Jamie's point, what that means from like, a sales, training standpoint, for me, I think, just from what I see and from the clients that we work with, there should be never a time where you've just got a list in front of you and you're hoping. It's like, right, I'm going to call that person because we've spoken 2 years ago and he might have a job.
GTM become a category. How did you hear GTM recently? Quite a few years. Essentially, it's replacing the SDR, right? And can you give people like
a
bit of insight into it?
I think it's replacing the research part. Like if I go back to my times as like, as a recruiter or starting a desk, it's you start. We don't have any contacts. We don't have any sort of like job leads or anything like that. Realistically now, so we're very heavy on Clay. I don't know if anyone has heard of that technology, but it's very technical. And if you've got good operators behind that system, you can essentially track for anything. So, a few people have said of like, job changes, someone's in a job for 35 months, and at that 36th month, that's when they could be ready for a call. Realistically now, you should have that set up on autopilot. Like that should just be done. And you can go very, very deep and sophisticated with that. So
just on that though, I suppose even to simplify that further for you, if you're in a niche and you need your 250 clients that you're going to build out, Clay can get you those details, and then marketing engages them to be able to get to the next stage of that. Isn't that right?
Correct.
It then shows you the signals as to where you make the call.
Yeah. So like for anything, so if there's a new CEO that's been that's been there for 3 months, could be usually means that they've got their own ideas and usually mean new hires. We're working with some really technical companies at the moment where they're just like tab flicking between GitHub, Google Scholar, all of these different things. And what you can do with it now, it's like anytime that someone uploads on GitHub a Google Scholar paper, you can track their GPA, or you can get so specific with it. And for me now, as like an SDR, the research piece, once you've got these systems set up, they're always running in the background. So whenever that event happens, it's letting, the the sales team, with that, with that intent for them to go make that call. So
How does this make you look at an organizational structure and what they need their training to be done?
Depends on the size of the organization, but I think in terms of like the people that are at the coalface, the training is they have to be able to take that and have to have the competency to be able to contact those people on, like we've said over and over again, like on the phone. It's the phone that the human to human is going to win, isn't it? It's at the moment like human to human is an edge, but it won't be long before that's like the only advantage you have. It'll be the only thing. So we have to have people that are skilled in human to human contact.
And she's asked, is this for sourcing or business development?
both. I see both of them the same, to be honest. I think there's two different pipelines and, it works equally well. So yeah, it applies both ways. I think it can actually be more interesting on the candidate side of things, to be honest.
What I meant was, will we try and use this technology to get us a call, or can we use this technology to get us on a meeting? So you can skip the call, go to a meeting and say, how's it?
I think maybe sometimes the call is the bridge to the meeting. I think actually do you know what? Like if I think back to war stories back in the day, the idea was call someone and try and pull a job, and I don't think that's a realistic expectation anymore. I think no, I don't. Well, do you know what? Maybe you can, but I think the way that you position yourself there, I'll talk about 4 levels. You're a transactional recruiter, and that, to be fair, that's where 90% of the market lives. But if you use that call to say, I've seen that you've been acquired by X company, and typically what I see in the market is one of these 3 things happen. I've got some information that I think might be useful for you. Are you free for a coffee next week? I think that's a much better strategy than do you need a insert job title, would be my opinion for the most part. Maybe on that call, if you give people the right structure, they get some pushback, and maybe you pull the job and you work in contingent.
Rich rolls him a ton of times, and he's like famous independent recruiter, and he's would never give up a touch point. Like that call is where he's influencing what's going to happen next. We're finding out his information, and he's always like just working towards the next.
Yeah,
I presume it's the same at Liquid back in the day.
I think as well, where you can start getting really clever for it. So for me, like when you know all these signals and you can do that, they're for you, not for them. Like, and you don't need to say what you know, because you're going in with that type of confidence, and that's when you can start getting really clever. Not just on a call, but like how you approach an email or a LinkedIn message, because you know what's going on and all of these different contexts around it. That's where you can stand out in an email, a LinkedIn message, a voice note, a call, whatever it might be. That for me is like a big competitive advantage.
Chris, you had a question?
Yeah. Like, text really cool. I like it. It sounds good. I think it's definitely forward now. So I kind of approach, but it's not overly cheap for a smaller agency to afford that big budget that's required to implement the sort of stuff you're talking about. I appreciate your way that it needs staffing and all the rest of it. If you're a startup organisation, if you believe that you're going to get technology first organisation, what could a company do? If there's a smaller 1-2 man back base that can't afford X per month, what could they do themselves to get themselves prepared? Sort of pre-season training before
Yeah.
the tech. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'd definitely advise everyone just to go deep and research what Clay can actually do for recruitment, because I think once you start seeing how for me, it's built for rec, and I think a lot of the people that I speak to, when I'm showing you what it does, it's like, right, okay. So I think as a first step is, just go do some research. I mean, ultimately, like,
you could do the data piece.
Yeah, you could do the data piece.
There's a Clay login is like 380 quid.
Yeah,
you can get. I think you can just buy the data. You won't be able to do all the other stuff, the domains and all.
Yeah, you could do that as like an entry point. I reckon if you had 4 or 5 hours of workshops on that, you could get some really interesting results. versus, LinkedIn, Boolean search, which I don't think is that great, to be honest.
I've seen a lot of independent recruiters, small businesses fall over because they're spending all their time trying to knit their little tech together and they're not focusing on the business. I think you have to be ready for this in your business, and you have to I just think if you're so small, just stay away from it. It's too complicated.
So it's three things, but they're all part of the same thing. And I'm talking about this because it's very apparent right now in this slump, blip, whatever, new norm, whatever you want to call it. But it's from a business development perspective, is that you have to have a strategy. You have to have a structure for how you're going to execute the strategy, and then you have to have the discipline to follow through with it. And it's that bit that's missing. And for some of them, it's there's no strategy. And you could say that's the leader of the business. That should be them saying, this is our strategy, a structure. This is how you go and do this. And then there's the discipline bit. Do they do it every single day, every single week? It's that. Like it can, for the most part, when there's a business development, like outreach, conversion challenge, it sits within that somewhere. Yeah.
So the discipline's the hardest one, right?
Yeah, probably for a lot of people. I think. Do you know what? I think certainly a year ago. I don't know whether the market's probably got a bit leaner. Maybe is that right? And I think maybe some of the people that didn't have the discipline to do the things they need to do when they need to do them, maybe aren't operating.
You're in the position of the other guy, so we're having a shot at setting up a recruitment agency now. What are you put yourself in the imaginary situation that you've skimmed down from 25 to 5, you're founder-led, and you want to go and be really successful in this new economy, and you choose, with all your training knowledge, with all of this here, what does that business look like?
I'm not just saying this because he's sat there, but I'd be speaking to someone like Mike, and I'd want this team of 5 being absolutely like fed signals, leads, and I don't mean leads like here's 5 jobs from Indeed. I mean like the M&A stuff, funding, leadership changes, new market entries, all of that. And I'd want like killer salespeople that have a structure, have the discipline to get through the list and know what to do to convert that into like coffee meetings, face-to-face, on-site briefings.
You train those killer salespeople, given that people will ask almost what's the question from earlier on.
Yeah, I believe, and there'll be people that disagree with this. I think they just have to go through the reps, and if it is like 100 calls to get through to 5 people, you've got to phone 500 people this week and go at the end of this week. I've had 25 conversations this week. That's all right, and I'll do that again next week, and that's 100 conversations this month, and then you can start to look at if we've not got conversion, then maybe there's something in the quality bit because you've got to do something a certain amount of times to be able to become proficient at it, I suppose.
What does your business look like, Mike? Your imaginary business, not the real one.
The imaginary one. I definitely, which you can do on any sort of GPT, I'd target a market with very predictable cycles, whether that's when bonuses get paid out, like when people start hiring, because once you can try and find some common patterns, regardless of what the market's doing or the economy's doing, like very predictable, hiring, patterns, whatever that is in, whether it's, real estate, private equity, where bonuses get paid out in March, you can build like quite a focused BD plan around that. And then once start layering in, to a certain extent, some of, this tech, which you can do quite lightly. And yeah, I'd be very niche on, predictable cycles basically.
What would the people look like you've hired?
Personally, I've had very, very good success out of South Africa. A lot of our team are based in South Africa. I think it's a great talent pool. I think regardless of, we've got, automation, tech people there. I know quite a lot of people, some people in this room who've got really good recruiters out of South Africa. And I think, that there's not so much of, some of the rookie recruiters that you might get straight out of college now. A lot of these, the type of people they are, they're hungry, they want to, they're very appreciative of the job just for, because of like conditions over there. And, they're very close to the type of banter which is in the UK. You can have they get it. They work hard. They're very good salespeople. They've got talent across the board, and it's very, very.
You'd be in a really good niche that's signal heavy. This distributed offshore takes. Yeah. Yes. Lean. Yeah. Lean, profit led. Yeah. That's what I do. Ken, how do you stay up to date with AI?
I don't think anyone can, to be honest, mate. Like it's changing so fast, and it's clear now it's probably going to be something different in 12 months, and that's why I think just putting all your eggs in one basket is can be a bit of a risk. So I think it's just really understanding what is happening. There's a lot of like hot air out there as well, like the amount of time I see, posts on LinkedIn where it's, anyone out of college who's put as like a chat GPT wrapper and says, fix your pipeline and, with $200 a month, just bollocks like. So it's all custom. Like the custom implementation, I think, is where it's going to go, and just not being reliant on one platform. So yeah, I think it's just keeping your ear to the ground with that, and just being aware that things are going to change, and it's just understanding that and seeing whatever you want it to do, and go from there.
I guess thank you all so much. Thank you to all the guests, to the sponsors. It's been a great show, and really appreciate you.
Yes.